let's shift gears and welcome our fantastic education panel. Studies indicate that the interactive learning provides better student engagement and improves student outcomes. However, nearly 2/3 of the U.S. school districts currently experimenting with hybridization are not satisfied with their results. Today, we're here to level set about today's educational environment and share some insights into how both the Dallas schools and Maine schools have been keeping students engaged and how technology is a game changer for their schools. Let's start with some introductions. Keisha, why don't we start with you?
All right. Hello, everybody. I am Dr. Keisha Ray, and I'm the principal consultant for K20 Connect.
Awesome. Thanks, Keisha. Emma, let's move to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emma Banks. I'm the Secondary Digital Learning and Computer Science Specialist at the Maine Department of Education.
Thanks, Emma. And last but not least, Hyro.
Yes, my name is Hyro Costco. I am the principal at Hog New Tech Center here in Dallas ISD.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to this panel. Thank you so much for joining us today. Let's level set, Keisha. Can you kind of give us some insights into what the schools are facing today and what is top of mind for them?
Sure thing. Well, as states start to unmask, we're seeing a return to school, but we still know that the majority of schools are operating in what we call a hybrid environment. So some students are coming in full-time, face-to-face, and some students are still online in synchronous or asynchronous environments, meaning sometimes they're working on their own with no teacher present, and sometimes they're in a video conference type setting in a synchronous mode. And this is most likely not going to change until we have a higher concentration of people vaccinated. And in my opinion, it's probably going to be impossible to reverse some of the modifications we've made to accommodate learning during COVID. Things like flexible schedules, this hybrid learning, online assessments, and we cannot forget that our parents are more involved than ever in teaching their children. And I don't think we're going to unwind that either. We're most likely going to see schools we're most likely never going to see schools, the way they were before COVID. And most certainly there will be a greater variety in school offerings than there ever was before. The innovation that we've seen our heroic educational leaders manage through this pandemic will no doubt continue. And we're going to see a variety of models for schools that include the increased dependency on technology in education. These classrooms that we are designing going forward must support the evolved learners that we will have returning to our classrooms.
Couldn't agree with you more, Keisha. I have the privilege to be able to talk to lots of different teachers and educators out there, and they're saying the same things to me. So spot on. We're in a new dawn of education, right? So Hyra, can you relate to what Keisha just mentioned? I'm sure you can, but how has the Dallas schools really dealt with this challenge?
Dallas was sort of prepared. We've been very fortunate with our district leaders that knew that technology was very vital for the now and for the future. And so they were already on the road with the infrastructure of going one-to-one. So with COVID, we got it just in time. So they started with secondary and with elementary. So we are a one-to-one district. And then also we do have strong Wi-Fi. So that's really good.
That is good. I'm sure very important when you have one-to-one. What would you say your percentage of hybrid are right now?
Currently 40% is like in my school, 40% is hybrid. And throughout the district, it's like pretty much like 50-50.
Wow. Yeah. And I'm sure you can relate to that, Emma. Thanks, Hyro. So I know creating a hybrid model is tough. At Samsung, we've been really helping schools reimagine education with our partnership with Boxlight, and really being able to provide teachers with a platform to build, create, and present lessons that drive engagement and increase, of course, student outcomes. So what has your strategy been? How has display really played into your hybrid strategy? That's to you, Hyro.
Oh, sorry. Yes, it's been very vital because, as we think about the classroom, we look as the teacher as a facilitator of learning. And so the displays really allow the easy use. And that's the key thing. it's easy with the displays. Teachers are able to just push out content really easily. Then also for students, I mean, they're learning without any hesitation, because as we see, technology should be just right there, right by the side with teaching and learning. And also it strengthens our approach of really strengthening those future-ready skills. The displays allows our students to be able to communicate, to collaborate with each other. Also, it allows creativity, with the displays and that critical thinking when they're really trying to work. It just really has allowed us to really push that learning.
And I believe you said you were working with the 85-inch interactive display, correct?
Yes. So I got excited not too long ago when I heard the 85-inch came out, because I really do believe that there should be a good amount of space in the classroom to be, as we call it, digital workspace. So I got a little bit innovative. I said, why do we have a dry erase board in the classroom? Why don't we put two 85s together and could create a huge digital workspace? So
wow.
We have two 85s together. They work as one. They work as separate. Really, the kids are engaged. And then if I can tell you something a little funny, because, with COVID, you're like, well, how can our kids still able to still work with the interactive displays? Well, as you know, with Samsung, who had the great idea, the utensil you use is just wood. So we went and asked for a donation of chopsticks. So our students have chopsticks, and they have their own set, and they go up there and they use their chopstick writing on the interactive display.
I just love that. And I'm sure the kids get a kick out of it, and the teachers probably get a kick out of it too. That's a fantastic story.
Yes, they tell their parents when they go to a restaurant, oh, I need some chopsticks.
I love that. Thank you. Emma, let's move on to you. Same question. Does what Keisha said really resonate with you? And how are your districts navigating this new normal?
Yeah, absolutely. I would also share in Jairo's reflection that Maine, similarly to Dallas, was probably more prepared than most, maybe a little bit ahead of the curve with some of our emphasis on connectivity and one-to-one connection. The MLTI, Maine Learning Technology Initiative, was started in 2000, and that has kind of propelled Maine closer to being one-to-one. So when we realized that most of our schools were going to be, closed or in this potentially hybrid environment or some combination thereof, we reacted and tried to kind of close that gap to get any of our students who weren't one-to-one or who didn't have a connection that was local to them, that was only at their school, that they could get connected as well.
I think offline, you told us about one example, districts then tried to get creative. Didn't they say something about a bus, and you kind of obviously solved that? Can you elaborate?
Yes. So our state is local control. So each of our districts kind of, they sometimes often collaborate, but they make decisions and try to do what's best for their local area. And so in some of our extremely rural areas where connectivity is really not realistic for every home, they have, for a period of time, and I think potentially even still now, are offering buses that have Wi-Fi connections that students can come to, as well as ramping up the Wi-Fi connections at schools so that students could come and sit in the parking lot within their parents' vehicles and work as well.
That's awesome. And I believe you said that the kids are using Tab A LTE devices, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So that was the solution for our state as far as getting our kids connected with a device and an internet connection. We have some places where broadband is not available within certain towns and areas. And so the LTE connection was really imperative to make sure that our students could get connected. And those Tab A's, having that LTE connection, also provided them with a device that they could use.
Yeah, I think connecting our students to our teachers was so critical, and really level setting across our nation was obviously super important across the board. Obviously hybrid has pushed the boundaries, Emma, right? I'm sure your teachers have been forced to think a little bit differently.
Oh, absolutely. Probably in ways that none of us really ever saw coming quite as rapidly as what they have. So our tablets, the Tab A's were chosen because they're really easy to use. The onboarding process for them was, a matter of a few clicks, and then, you're connected and ready to go. And we were also able to, if they needed to be configured as a hotspot, we were able to also configure them that way to be able to have them function that way. And one of the other advantages of the Tab A's is having our state be mostly Google users. The Google apps work really well on the Tab A's. And so that was a pretty easy decision to go with them.
Fantastic. Thanks, Emma. So it sounds like between Dallas and Maine, there's been a lot done to really put the student at the center of a lot of the technology and a lot of the decisions that you guys are making. So that's super critical. Jairo, how is the one-to-one devices being used in your district, and what is the use of display technology, and how is it helping special needs students specifically?
Well, in general, what the one-to-one device is allowing us is to really provide that differentiated instruction for our students. And then because the whole goal is to really meet where the students are at and then grow them. And with the devices, we can really push out the content and then use various softwares to really create their own pathway of their learning. And then when we're talking about with our special needs students, it really isolates, their objectives, like what we can do. And then it's amazed how they love the interactive display. They go up, and it's, like you say, so easy to use. You don't need to, well, as we know, we have tablets, they use their smartphones. So the interactive display is just a huge tablet for them. And so it's easy for them to use, and they're so engaged.
I love that. And you're basically meeting them where they're at, right? And I'm sure with the use of technology, you're able to kind of customize learning to the different learning ways that our students require. Is that correct?
Correct. And then also, it allows us to take learning outside the four walls, because learning is a constant, right? And so it allows us to really dabble into various approaches. Like you have flipped learning. They can do something at home, and then when they come to class, they're ready to go, or within the classroom. So it really does allows us to really explore outside the four walls of the classroom.
Fantastic. Moving to the future, Keisha, what does the future look like in education, and how do you think Samsung can help here?
Well, I think the future has been fast forwarded thanks to COVID. And I was hosting a webinar last week, and the district we were profiling mentioned they had implemented their recently approved 5-year strategic plan in just 3 months.
Wow.
So I don't believe we will ever see a time where we're not leaning on technology for learning.
Right.
And that disruption has happened in a way we could have never imagined before. I believe blended learning will become the standard of instruction, especially in the form of hybrid with both asynchronous and synchronous instruction. I think virtual schooling will offer districts a chance to solve for teacher shortage challenges, as well as meet students where they are in their learning pathway as they recover any learning lost. Some districts will be using this as a way to maximize their building capacities by allowing students to have asynchronous days of learning. And I think on-demand digital content and online assessments will be an intricate part of the learning experience. The classroom will be able to accommodate both online and on-ground learners through digital displays, mobile devices, universal internet access, audio systems, and learning management systems. This evolved learning system will be necessary to support our learners' needs and attend to any gaps in learning they may have experienced along the way. It's a really exciting time to rethink education.
I feel like this also helps with inclusiveness, right? Think of the student who may have a long-term injury or illness, right? Being able to, really revolutionize the hybrid model to bring those students who might have been out of school for a long time back to learning. What do you think about that, Keisha?
Oh, I 100% agree. I think our special needs learners will be able to be accommodated more more functionally in these types of classrooms. And I also think that we can attend to the social emotional needs of our learners a little bit better by having a differentiated classroom setting. You've got the ability to have asynchronous learning taking place while a teacher can pay attention to a small group of learners with special needs.
Right. That's awesome. Thank you, Keisha.
Sure.
Emma, as someone who has been responsible for a lot of your IT needs in Maine, can you relate to that? What is your new 5-year plan? Like, did you throw it out the window after COVID started?
Yeah. So I think, looking at a 5-year plan, last year and what it might look like this year, revisiting it, I think we've made leaps and bounds as far as, tackling some of those basics. We've got a new baseline that we're kind of starting with here. I like to use the example of Zoom or video conferencing. Like, instead of, focusing on how to connect and get onto that video conference, we can now talk a little bit more about how to engage students who are on the other side of that video conference. We can look a little bit more at innovation and equity. How do we expand access to these awesome opportunities that are ongoing across our state that some of our other students may not have had access to without technology?
It probably helps with some of your, top students, right? You can probably give them access to learnings that maybe their individual school might not have, right? And so it really changes the game and kind of gives the education that each individual student needs, right?
Oh yeah, we're taking differentiated instruction to a whole new level with technology now, right? The learner that needs the additional support, they have access to a wealth of resources to be able to get to where they need to be and put that extra time in. Our advanced learners, they can now become more advanced because there's none of these barriers that are preventing them, or there's less barriers, I should say, preventing them from accessing those types of materials, for sure.
So, I'm throwing the script out the window, Emma. I'm sure your teachers, we've seen trends where, 50% of your teachers are digital natives and 50% of those teachers are not. How have you kind of overcome that with the use of these Tab A LTE devices? And what has the general reaction been once they're in those teachers' hands?
Yeah, so one of the things that I think Maine is great about is collaboration. So, you'll often find that just organically within schools, we have, tech leaders helping other teachers who may not be as comfortable with tech, which I think is great. And then in addition to that, we're also kind of working towards creating more opportunities as well as, I think it's so interesting because we have teachers who may not feel comfortable using like the Tab A as a device. When they see it at first, it might bring fear, like, oh no, I have to learn a new thing. But I think once you can bring them back to, oh, well, this is very similar to, the phone that you use every day, that's when it clicks for them. And we start to see them, oh, so I could use this to do blank, or I could use this to, or it has a camera on it. So I could just use the camera the same way that I might use a camera on any other device. So we really usually tackle those kinds of challenges by pointing out similarities in other things that they're already making use of, which I think helps to remove some of that fear that comes along with like, oh no, a new device, not another one,
I love that. And Jairo, I'm coming back to you. I've had the pleasure of talking to you about this very topic earlier. How has it been with your teachers, 50% data, digital natives and 50% not? How has the introduction of the interactive display and flip technology worked with your teachers?
It's been very smooth because once again, the displays is very intuitive, right? And it's seamless. And also it allows us to be wireless. And that is really the neat thing about the displays. And also what I've noticed with Samsung is they allow various interfaces for us to use whatever device, because the challenge is you have so many devices going back and forth, from laptops to cell phones to tablets. And with the displays, it's very easy to connect and allows that movement around the classroom, which allows the engagement to happen.
I love that. And that moves us into our Q&A section. We did have a few questions come in, and then I'll open up for some closing statements for you guys. One question is about the Google Drive. Can we access files from Google Drive? I don't know, Jairo, are you using the Google Drive on the interactive display right now?
We have not, but I assume you could because you have a browser there. So I don't see it being an issue.
Yeah, and I can tell you from personal experience working with it that, we've had teachers come to us that have actually worked with their administration to connect it in if there's a firewall or whatnot. Definitely work with your district to make sure that you can kind of cut through some of that tape. But fairly good idea that it does indeed connect to that.
And then also just like to add real quick too, is that the beauty of the displays is that it only mirrors the device that you're using. So is it a tablet that has your Drive app, or is your PC that has it, or your iPad that has it? It just connects to it, so you have it there.
I love that. This question is for you, Emma. Did you find it hard to choose when you were evaluating some of the tablet technology that you were looking at?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, of course, we went through an evaluative process out of what was readily available. And the Tab A's definitely rose to the top of both availability and the processing power and meeting the needs of our students. So it's definitely a combination decision there.
Fantastic. Jairo, are you using any particular software on your Flip or interactive display, or any types of apps that might be helpful for our teachers listening in?
For our teachers, because once again, is whatever device you're using just projects to your display. And so one of the things that we are dabbling now into is, as been mentioned at the get-go, is Mimio Connect. It's very promising software where it has content there, it has teleconferencing and all in one area. So we're starting to dabble into that, and we're very excited about that software.
Yeah, also to further that, one of the great things about the interactive display that we have is indeed that you can use your mobile device. That opens up a slew of different teaching applications and softwares, and really puts it at the hand of the teacher, right? So especially if teachers are not, only in one room and they're more floating around, they can take their curriculum with them where they go and be able to display that directly onto the board. For other software that works directly with our interactive display is, of course, as Jairo mentioned, Boxlight's Mimio Connect. There's definitely some demos in this virtual experience today, so definitely check them out. They're definitely one of our sponsors, so shout out to Boxlight. We really appreciate the work that they're doing with us. So definitely, if you're interested, check out Boxlight and feel free to ask some questions around that. Let's see, any other questions? It looks like we're good. I think we've run through it really well. I really enjoyed these conversations. That's all we have time. So thank you to the panelists. And of course, thank you for tuning into Samsung VX Live. Don't go anywhere. We have quite a lineup. We have our healthcare session coming right up. And again, thank you for attending Samsung VX Live.